What's up guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ayomide, and on this channel I post sewing tutorials and pattern drafting tutorials. In this tutorial, as you can see here, I'm going to be sharing how I made this beautiful gorgeous looking pantsuit. This pantsuit has pockets by the sides and the neckline is a halter neckline. So guys, if you want to learn how I did this, then you should see this video up until the very end. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, kindly click on the subscribe button below. Also turn on your notifications and let's jump straight into this tutorial. To get started, we are going to be modifying a basic bodice block. If you don't know how to draft one, I have a detailed tutorial on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be putting a link in the description box. The length of this block is 17 inches and I added half an inch for seam allowance, so that's 17.5. The neckline is 1.5 inch right over there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to just draw a straight line from the neckline to stop at the shoulder point. So I have this straight line right here. Afterwards, I'm going to be marking 5 inches on that line. You can mark 6 inches, but the more you mark, the more fabric you have. Then I'm going to be redrawing the armhole. So you can see this is how I created the halter neckline for this garment. So I have my halter neckline right here drawn out already. Now what I will do is that I'm going to be using this pattern to cut both the front and the back, but I'm going to be cutting the back first of all and then do a little bit of alteration, which I'm going to be showing us, and then I'm going to be cutting the front. I added 1.5 inch above the neckline, and this would serve as a casing for the rope that I would use to tie this pantsuit around my neckline. I've gone ahead to cut out the back. I added zipper allowance along the center back, half an inch along the armhole area, and the side seam allowance to sew. I'm just going over to mark the wrong sides of my fabric so that I do not get confused at the point of sewing. Now it's time to work on the front. For the alteration I spoke about, the first thing I will do is to get the midpoint of the armhole area and connect that point to my bust point line. Okay, and then I'll mark 3/4 of an inch against both sides of that line, and I'm going to be closing that, so it's more like I drew in a dart. So what this would do is to eliminate any gaping that may want to occur around the armhole area, because it is quite inevitable if you don't do this, that side might gape. Now if you look at this, my pattern, you can see that it is not properly aligned, but when I'm cutting on my fabric, I'm going to be doing the proper alignments. Okay, so I'm just here placing my pattern on my fabric, and then I would add necessary seam allowances. Afterwards, I'll proceed to cut this out. This is the front after I was done. This is what it looks like. Okay, so this part here, I'm going to be folding it inward to create my casing. At the point of sewing, I'm going to be explaining all of this later on. The next thing would be to cut the trouser part of this pantsuit. Now I didn't do a detailed tutorial because I have numerous tutorials on my YouTube channel on how to draft a trouser and even how to sew a proper jumpsuit. And the good thing is that I have linked those tutorials down in the description box below, so just click open the description below and then watch those tutorials. It is highly detailed. I am done cutting. Now it is time to get started with sewing. This right here is the front, and I'm going to be starting with the pockets. So to work on the pockets, I have the pocket facing right here, and I'll just match it up to the opening of the pockets. This would help to conceal the raw edges around the pocket opening. So I'll just go ahead and sew that all the way down for the both sides of the front. For the back, all I need to do for now is just to sew in the dart allowance. While cutting, I added 1 inch dart allowance to the back, so I'll just do that and then I'll leave the back for now until it is time to fix the zipper. So guys, this is what my pocket looks like so far. You can see that I have concealed the pocket opening. Now it is time to create our pockets properly, and to do that I'm going to be grabbing this piece of fabric right here, which is what I'm going to be using to create the pocket bag. So what I'll do is I'll pin that piece of fabric to the pockets facing, and then I'll just go ahead and sew it down. I'm not going to be sewing it on the main fabric of the trouser. I'm just going to be sewing it all around to create a bag. This is what my pocket looks like after I was done sewing it. Here is what I have. To move on, what I'll do next is to sew in my dart allowance, and that's because I also added 1 inch dart allowance to the front. And after that is done, I am going to be joining the both front pieces together along the crotch area. To work on the front, I am also going to be picking my dart, and that's because I also added dart allowance on the front too. So just go ahead and pick my dart for both the front, and also pick my dart at the back too. I am done sewing in my darts. At this point, you would want to iron so that your fabric looks neat. I love to iron as I sew. The next thing would be to sew the armhole area, and I'm using a matching bias tape to just conceal that rough edge around the armhole area. And once I'm done with that, I am going to be creating my casing. Remember, I added 1.5 inch for casing before cutting out, so I'll just fold 1/2 inch inward and then cover up the casing this way as I illustrated. I'll do this for both the front and the back, and here is what I have after I was done with that step. My casing created and the armhole neatly finished. It is now time to join both the bodice and the trouser part together. So what I will do is just to join them together along the waistline. I'll repeat likewise for the back also. So guys, a little correction right here. At the point of fixing my zipper, I realized that I sew in the casing for the back wrongly, and I'm going to be making that correction for us here so that we do not make the same mistake. If you want to sew in your casing for the back, make sure you fold in your zipper allowance this way before going over to sew down your casing, and this would ensure that that zipper end is open-ended and to allow any thread, any rope you are passing through to come out. Okay, the mistake I made was that I did not fold in the zipper allowance before sewing down the casing, and this will lead to that place being blocked. So make sure you fold your zipper allowance first before sewing down your casing. So the next thing I'll just do is to sew down my zipper. I am done sewing the zipper down, and this is what it looks like. So if you notice, you would realize that the zipper did not start from the very top of the back. I marked about 6 inches downward before I fixed in the zipper, so that place is going to be open. Now it is time to join both the front and the back together. So what I will do is just to place right sides against each other, proceed to my sewing machine, and then sew this down together by the seam allowance which I added. Also, I am going to be closing up the inseam, and I would also sew the hem too. This is what the pantsuit looks like. It is already taking shape. I have the pockets in place, and the next thing would be to create the rope that I'm going to be passing through the elastic casing. For the rope, I wanted to do something different. I could easily pass a single strip of fabric through the casing and that would be all, but I wanted to try something different. So I have 3 strips of fabric here, and my initial plan was to pleat them together, but I did not like the outcome, so I ended up twisting them, and for twisting I used just 2 strips of fabric instead of 3 strips of fabric. As you can see here, I have attached 2 fabric strips together and I'm just going ahead to twist them. This is the outcome of the twist, and I'm going to be passing this through the casing, and I'm going to be showing us how my pantsuit came out to be. Guys, this is the end result of this tutorial. I couldn't wear these because I didn't make it for myself. I made it for a client. And if you found this tutorial really helpful, make sure you give this a huge thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, kindly click on the subscribe button below. Turn on your notifications so you can become notified whenever I upload a new video. And until my next tutorial, guys, stay blessed and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.